Welcome to the Leadership in Law podcast with host Marilyn Jenkins. Cut through the noise, get actionable insights and inspiring stories delivered straight to your ears. Your ultimate podcast for navigating the ever-changing world of law firm ownership. In each episode, we dive deep into the critical topics that matter most to you, from unlocking explosive growth to building a thriving team. We connect you with successful firm leaders and industry experts who share their proven strategies and hard-won wisdom. So, whether you're a seasoned leader or just starting your journey as a law firm owner, the Leadership in Law podcast is here to equip you with the knowledge and tools you need to build a successful and fulfilling legal practice.
Welcome to another episode of the Leadership in Law podcast. I'm your host, Marilyn Jenkins. Please join me in welcoming my guest, Michael Stockham, to the show today. Michael is a powerhouse in the legal world and a rising star in the literary realm. As a top-notch litigation attorney with over 2 decades of experience at a prestigious big law firm, Michael continues to tackle high-stakes cases. A graduate of Cornell Law School, he's not only a sought-after litigator, but also an electrifying speaker who commands attention in the courtroom and beyond. Confessions of an Accidental Lawyer was his first best-selling novel, followed by legal thriller series starter Jake Fox, Ties That Blind. I'm excited to have you here, Michael. Welcome.
Thank you. It's a blessing to be on the show, Marilyn. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. I'm excited to have you. I'm so interested. So in your writing and everything, tell us about your leadership journey, how everything started.
Sure, absolutely. So I am in all sorts of ways an accidental lawyer. I did not start out to be a lawyer. My original degrees were in writing poetry and short stories. And then I wandered around for 5 or 6 years and decided that I wanted to have a career. So I applied to law school and ended up going to Cornell, which is a wonderful experience. And then joined a large firm here in Dallas, Thompson & Knight, which later merged into Holland Knight. And so I'm now currently a partner at a firm of about 2,000 lawyers.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah, it's a big group, fun group.
Must be fun. Yeah, lots of different things you get to do there. And I guess you work with people that have multiple problems and larger companies. That is your specialty. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the thumbnail sketch of my practice is pretty simple. I help companies that have problems with the government, shareholders, or auditors. So I do a lot of work with SEC, DOJ defense, shareholder class action lawsuits. And then on the auditor side, I get involved with the audit committees, oftentimes with internal confidential reviews or confidential investigations, oftentimes triggered by whistleblower activity.
Okay. And you obviously being in a larger law firm, you studied under someone or were mentored, and that kind of leads to your leadership. Can you give us a bit of a tour of that?
Absolutely. So I've been very fortunate to been mentored by 2 excellent lawyers, Tim McCormick and Bill Banowski, both of who were in our securities and corporate governance group. And those gentlemen passed on not only their wisdom about the law, but also about how to lead projects and also how to keep your cool under pressure. So I've been blessed to have been taught by both of them.
Oh, fantastic. And also with leadership, or do you have a management team? I mean, do you have a team that you manage, I guess would be the question.
So with what I do is each individual project is somewhat different depending on availability of lawyers around me, skill sets that are necessary, et cetera. So it's really learning to lead multiple teams through multiple different types of projects. So there are always different folks. It's not the same folks, although some are repeat participants, but the ability to lead disparate groups, especially some folks that join us from different geographies, is part of the skill set. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so then some of the people involved in your cases would be, say, from overseas.
Could be overseas or just across the country. So oftentimes, because the firm is 2,000 lawyers with 24 or more offices, my team may consist of folks that are as far apart as Miami, LA, and New York. as well as me here in Dallas. So it's different geographies, and sometimes we do get involved in overseas issues, and then that brings a whole different realm to it in how you lead people through different time frames, time sets, and also how you lead those individuals with different cultural issues, different cultural backgrounds, et cetera, in the business world, really.
Right, right. And having to be sensitive to that. Exactly. And that comes around to, or brings up the question about talking about communication. So clearly,
Sure.
whenever someone has come in to work with you, they are having a problem or whatever happened.
Absolutely.
And then here things is to help how to deal with multiple threats and communication and that sort of thing. And so if my company were to come in with a problem, would you help us with our internal communication about the case as well as with the government or whoever's coming to us? And what's your advice on that, Cindy, or how do you handle that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when companies face big stakes litigation and or the government is involved at the same time, they can often find themselves under multiple threat vectors at once. And it really comes down to an issue of external messaging, internal messaging, and prioritizing what projects and what threats to take on first. And so my practice can easily be as varied from crisis communication that's media facing to interactions with judges in the court to taking folks in as witnesses to visit with the government.
Okay. And you help manage all of that, you and your team.
Yeah, absolutely. So we would end up serving as a hub, if you will, trying to help the company not only deal with all the risks at once, but also manage all the risks at once, but also dealing with their internal personnel and how they bring resources to bear to deal with those threats, but also message on the inside in order to keep the employee base, the different stakeholders, whether it be shareholders or others, informed, and also somewhat calm's the wrong word, but not overly worried about the issues going on. Because anytime a company is under assault from multiple angles, you can run into high vibration in the emotions across all different stakeholders, and managing that is very important.
I can imagine, especially if you've got someone from the government breathing down your neck. Exactly.
That is correct. And that is, once a company gets on this slope where there are multiple angles of attack, if you will, oftentimes the stress increases. And one of the best or most important efforts that we can have as attorneys and counselors, and this is really the counselor side of everything, is trying to minimize that stress and upheaval and try to help them navigate those choppy waters.
I get it. So you're also a calming factor and just trying to keep everybody under control with a game plan and moving forward with the game plan.
That is 100% correct. So we do spend a lot of time talking through both hard strategies as to how to deal with the government or other litigants, and soft strategies as to how to deal with personnel management, messaging, media, that kind of thing.
And the aftermath, obviously moving forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And as you can imagine, most of these are ongoing projects. So it's not like you get bombarded with all 10 problems on day one, prioritize them, and then work them through. You tend to get hit with one, and as you move forward and think you're making progress on that, you get hit with another, and so forth and so on until there are just multiple problems all in the hopper at once.
Okay. All right. Great. So yeah, being able to manage all of that and people, that's definitely a skill that you've picked up and handled very well from your mentors. I love that you've had coaches that you worked with and moved through in your career, because we love that, and being able to take, the lessons that you learned from your coach or your mentor and be able to hand that down. And I'm sure with your teams, you're doing a bit of that as well.
Absolutely. And that's really a two-part answer there. So as I get older in my 50s, most of my mentors are retiring, and I'm suddenly realizing that people are looking to me to be the mentor, which is a change in role, but one I welcome. And one that I think the legal profession, to a certain extent, post-COVID struggles with a little bit. because especially in large firms, just like any other business, we still have a lot of folks that are working off site. And that's very efficient for a lot of people. It's very helpful for people. It allows them to deal with family and other outside issues perhaps more easily. What I do worry about a little bit is that they lose the two-way give and take between being in office and being able to soak in what I did with my mentors, which was often sitting in their office and watching them deal with a problem or listening to them deal with the government or a client. And so you learn a little bit by osmosis as a professional. And I would encourage people to try to get as much of that type of learning as possible as the professions move forward.
Very good points, because you're right. I mean, working remote can feel a lot like an island. I know in my team, we do a lot of, communication one-on-ones and, weekly team meetings, that type of thing, but it's just not the same as being in, that, and I'm not really talking the water cooler moment, but, there's those edges of work where you get more conversation and more mentoring and learn more from those people. I love the idea that you were sitting there and listening to cases as they develop and problems being solved. And you're right, you can't do that remotely.
A lot of this, especially being a lawyer, and I imagine it's the same in other industries, professions, et cetera, is learning what I would analogize to driving a stick shift and a clutch. It takes a little bit of time to get used to it. You have to practice with you have to have experience. And one of the ways you do that in a profession is watch other professionals who have been doing it 20 or 30 years deal with situations. And then you don't have to be like them. You're not to be a clone, but the more mentors you have, the more interaction you have, the more tidbits you can pick up about how you want to deal with situations in the future when you're the one that's leading the project or the litigation.
Excellent advice. I absolutely agree. Let's shift. I want to talk a little bit about what made you decide to become an author of novels. I mean, you were originally a poet, so I'm assuming it's building out your creative side into your career. So how did that get started, and how does that affect what you're doing now?
You are correct. So in the words of Harry Chapin in his great song, All My Life's a Circle, I started off wanting to be an author and a novelist, and that was what I was going to do as a living. And then took a detour into the law. I don't know if people fully understand the lack of income for a poet and a short story writer, but it's pretty bare. So I needed to find a way to make a living, and the law is a pretty good way to do it. It's very interesting. You're always learning new things, and quite frankly, in a lot of ways, it's storytelling, whether you're advocating for someone or communicating someone's position. So what really kicked it off was I had been playing around with novel writing and other stuff for about 20 years. But then when COVID came in and so much disruption happened, I found myself a little bit with sort of a case of insomnia and a lot of hours in early mornings that I could just sit around and get anxious and drink coffee, or I could do something with it. And that's when I started to progress towards the concept of, well, you've always wanted to be a novelist. You should go ahead and push forward with that and use the time and effort that you have this spare time to try to make that dream become a reality. And we're moving forward on that project quite successfully, I think.
I love that. You've got time, so why not be productive with it?
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. So the first novel is a standalone and not part of a series, Confessions of an Accidental Lawyer. And it really dovetails off of a trial I was blessed to have as a very young attorney as first chair in a civil rights case for a prisoner in solitary confinement in upstate Texas. And then the next novel, Jake Fox, Ties That Bind, is actually a bit of a bigger project. It's the first book in a series of 9 that I've started one novel down. We're into the second one significantly. The third one's planned, and we're starting to outline the other 6. So that one is quite we'll see. It's quite an effort, but I think we'll get there.
Well, that sounds exciting. I'm going to have to dive into that. I love the legal thrillers, especially the ones that keep going. Are you a woman attorney running your own firm but feeling like you're on a never-ending treadmill? This podcast is sponsored by Wealthy Woman Lawyer, the business coaching company that's helped hundreds of women lawyers over the past 12 years, just like you, transform revenue-draining practices into wealth-generating machines. Their clients, including Brittany and Gianni, routinely break the seven-figure barrier while working fewer hours. The difference? A systematic approach that builds a firm that works for you, not the other way around. Ready for a practice that funds your dream lifestyle and gives you time to enjoy it? Visit wealthywomanlawyer.com today.
Well, I enjoy it. And a series is a unique project because you get to, one, you have to keep track of everything over a much longer arc. You know, at 9 books at 90,000 pages each, or 90,000 words each, is almost 1,000,000 words. So trying to keep everything straight is a bit of a puzzle, but it's also a lot of fun because you get to enjoy writing your characters, fall in love with your characters, and keep them alive for much longer than just one book.
And is this completely out of your imagination, or is this based on something you've worked on in the past?
So the series is completely out of my imagination. Confessions had more of a tether to real world events as a springboard, but this one is completely made up in a small town in Texas that I've named Haven, which is quite freeing, actually, to tell you the truth. Writing something inspired by real world events can sometimes accidentally anchor you to what really happened, because you want to be accurate historically with what you know happened. When you free yourself to just make it up as you go, anything's possible, and that's a lot of fun.
Fantastic. And are you doing like the criminal work with the CSI type people? So you're having to do all of that research for it as well?
There is some police procedural component to it as well. There's the legal component to it, but all of that even takes research. For example, the first book, Jake Fox, deals with an underage teenager that was accused of killing her father, and just trying to figure out how a minor gets through the Texas system and can be prosecuted as an adult was a research project in and of itself. So constantly learning, constantly going out and trying to find new details and facts to be as accurate as possible while still being fully plugged into my imagination.
That sounds really exciting, that it would also keep your day job, if you will, exciting, and that then you've got a complete outlet for your books. That sounds exciting. That also would keep you on your toes on both sides of the game.
It does. So some of it's a natural extension of being a litigator. One of the things about being a trial lawyer is that not every client's industry is the same. The skill set on running a litigation can be somewhat the same, the rules of civil procedure, et cetera. But I've done cases for life sciences folks that do skin graft type materials. I've done cases for oil and gas wildcatters, done cases for telecom companies. So you're constantly being inundated with the ability to learn new things, which is quite fun. Quite interesting. It's the one aspect of the law, one of the aspects, probably the top aspect of the law that I like the most, is that you never get bored because you're always learning.
I love that. Yeah, every case is a new opportunity to either learn new people or learn new things.
100%. New cultures, new people. It's also a way, especially interacting with large corporations, to learn new leadership styles, because you get to see how general counsels lead their groups. You get to see how CFOs run their financial operations, how chief executives run the company, what they believe are the pillars of their corporate cultures. So you get to absorb a lot from a lot of different areas, and that makes it exciting as well.
And their communication styles, each one has to have its own little nuances, I'm sure.
100% correct. Every executive communicates a little bit differently or leads their team differently. So you get to sample a lot of different wells. And like I tell the folks that work for me, take what you want, discard the rest, but try to learn every day.
I love it. My coach actually says, eat the fish and leave the bones. I love that. Take what you
There you
need.
go. That's
Very
a great way
good.
to say it. I like that.
I love that. I love that. Well, this is really interesting. Now you didn't start writing your book until COVID. So, or your books, I say plural. Looking back on your career and the cases that you've done and the delight and fun that you've had doing the books, do you wish you had done them started them earlier in your career?
So yeah, that tinges on the edge of regret. Why didn't I do this earlier? And then I look at the time frame in between the two. I do have probably two less than successful and some might call awful novels stuck in a drawer somewhere from earlier attempts and efforts to learn to do the noveling. But looking back, I don't know that I would have had the time or the patience to pay attention to the story craft like I do now. My kids, right about the same time that I started writing novels, both my daughters went off to college. So I picked up a little bit of space, not only from being an early riser, a forced early riser now, to having a little extra space and not always running to another activity or high school or other stuff. Those are all important. It's great and wonderful to be engaged with family like that as the kids grow up, but it's been kind of a natural progression as I've gotten older that now I have the time and space to really pursue this particular activity.
I love that. I love that. So it's just been a natural progression to expand to that as your children leave home. That's fantastic. Well, I really loved having this conversation. So if you were to anyone listening to the podcast today, what would you want them to take from this, from your message and maybe improve their lives, become a mentor or something like that? What would you want them to have a key takeaway from this?
Well, I think one key takeaway, which is sort of more client focused, if you will, is to remember that even though if there are multiple threats to a company or to an entity at any one time, one of the number one things is to try to keep your head and prioritize and work through the problem. Just like any Gordian knot, the first thing you have to do is try to find the end and unwind from there. And it's very hard to do that if you let anxiety or upset drive the strategy. So, calmness, making decisions only when you have to in order to keep your options open is another way. From a mentorship standpoint, I'd encourage younger professionals to engage more. If you're away from the office and interacting mostly by Zoom, it's really hard to interrupt somebody in the middle of their day and ask a simple question. But it's not that hard to walk down the hall and say hello and bounce a bad idea off of a partner and see if maybe they can improve it. So I would encourage those personal interactions. And then from the noveling personal development standpoint, I would always say that it's never too late. Part of my motivation for the noveling is that my grandmother died at the age of 105. My dad is just turned 91. A lot of law firm partners retire late 60s, early 70s. And so I thought, well, what am I going to do the last 25 years of my life? I don't want to just sit around and, do nothing. So I wanted to have something that was vibrant, intellectual, that would keep me going. And the novels are that kind of project. That's one of the reasons for them as well.
I love that. I love all of that. I love the idea of people just getting involved with their firm and then building something. You're right. I mean, if you've got a long bloodline, that's a long time after you retire, and gardening is not that fun.
It can be for about 4 months, I think. Maybe. It's not my bailiwick. Other people love it. Every people enjoy it. And that if that's your shtick, go for it. I think
That's
it's
great.
awesome. There's a lot of stuff to do there, but I could not do it.
No, I can't either. I've got friends that could tell you the scientific name for every plant in their garden, and I'm like, no. That's just so not me. So I love that. I'm definitely going to pick up your book, and we are going to include the links to your books in the show notes.
Great.
If any of my listeners want to connect with you and chat with you, where's the best place that they can reach you?
Okay, so 2 places. One is my work email, michael.stockham@hklaw.com. That'll get me on a professional aspect, and on creative writing and writing novels or my books. It's just michael@michaelstockham.com. And most everybody can find me through LinkedIn or other social media platforms as well.
Fantastic. Okay, we're going to make sure that we have all of that in the show notes for you. And again, I want to thank you so much for your time. This has been exciting. And, go get his books, reach out to him. It sounds exciting.
Wonderful. It's a blessing. And thank you for inviting me on. I've had a great time.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining me today for this episode. As we wrap up, I'd love for you to do two things. First, subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. And if you find value here, I'd love it if you would rate it and review it. That really does make a difference in helping other people to discover this podcast. Second, you can connect with me on LinkedIn to keep up with what I'm currently learning and thinking about. And if you're ready to take the next step with a digital strategist to help you grow your law firm, I'd be honored to help you. Just go to lawmarketingzone.com to book a call with me. Stay tuned for our next episode next week. Until then, as always, thanks for listening to Leadership and Law Podcast, and be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss the next episode.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Leadership and Law Podcast. Remember, you're not alone on this journey. There's a whole community of law firm owners out there facing similar challenges and striving for the same success. Head over to our website at lawmarketingzone.com. From there, connect with other listeners, access valuable resources, and stay up to date on the latest episodes. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, keep leading with vision and keep growing your firm.